Welcome once again. It's time for the dailies and everything that's happening on the front pages. We've got a list of them here, but first let me introduce my partner, my co-host, my ride or die.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if
I don't know. I don't know if that
go on
term
with that.
works.
But Titi, you're welcome. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. All right, so together we're going to be doing the papers, I think I'm going to begin from the Punch newspaper this morning. Let's get to it then. So it's Monday, the 10th of December. Hang on a second, it's the 11th of December, my apologies, and we have this for the Punch newspaper. Dangote Refinery, diesel, jet A1 hit market, January petrol delayed. It's piecemeal crude oil supply delays PMS to others. Marketers welcome aviation fuel diesel production from January. That's good. Africa's largest refinery expects supply of 5 million barrels of crude beginning from late January. I'm going to come back and touch on that. I'm sure it's going to make a reappearance in other papers. But at the top of the Punch newspaper, external reserve fall to $520 million in 5 weeks, says the CBN. And Nigeria's revenue not enough to support, development says IMF. And PFAs make 8 trillion naira profit from pensions investment. At the bottom for the Punch, FG spend 837 billion naira on 2,254 roads and bridges. And at the bottom, Niger ECOWAS panel to resume talks. More sanctions loom.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you move on to the next paper because I'm sure that we're going to have different iterations of these headlines. So let's move on to what you have.
We have the Daily Times here. It says on the cover of the Daily Times, rising kidnapping, security agents battling to block replay of Jonathan-era Abuja insecurity. Tension in nation's capital, terrorists invade Kaduna community, casualties unknown, residents flee. How bandit kingpin Jan Bros followers were killed in Niger, according to NAF. It also says here, a man allegedly kills mother, sister, nabbed by police in Enugu. And at the top there, on the economy, federal government borrowing, anti-people, wasteful, unconscionable, Catholic bishops leader says here. And the story starts there on the cover and wraps up on page 4.
I will move on to The Guardian, but I just wanted to note that that's a very, very suspicious headline there. Security agents battling to block replay of Jonathan-era Abuja insecurity. I don't know what they meant by that, but that's a very interesting way to put a headline. The Guardian.
Direct.
Yeah, well, if you want to say that, it's okay. The Guardian newspaper here has this assets declaration 6 months on Tinubu's net worth unknown. CSO's kick. This on page 6. Again, with a chart to give you definition of the different regimes and how it's been. To the side, disclose how much oil Nigeria produces, exports, Serap tells NNPC, and FG secures 100 electric buses from Owando. 7 trillion naira yearly refunding worsens climate last crises report finds, and ECOWAS team negotiates with Niger on return to civil rule. Time to reorganize and adopt state policing. This on page 12 for The Guardian. And 109 senators donate December pay to Tudumbiri drone victims. Very interesting. We'll get to that. And Nigeria lost over 15 multinationals in 3 years. There's a lot here now. Let's start this discussion. First off, let's go back to the fact that we touched on the requests for disclosure of how much oil Nigeria is producing.
Yeah.
Very interesting, especially now that we have the Dangote refinery coming online, finally, late January, they say. But note, this is not the first time we've had a timeline put together and that we've missed by not just months, but perhaps maybe even years. What effect would it have on the economy? How good would this be? I think we need all the details so we know. Accountability is what that headline was asking for. And unless we know exactly what is being produced, perhaps maybe what could come out, the potentials of it, maybe we could plan using that as a nation. The airstrike drone is still a big topic on people's lips.
Very true, very true.
Death toll has risen. Some speculate that over 150 people actually lost their lives, and the army chief coming out to beg Nigerians for forgiveness over the instance. Don't know if that is the best.
I don't think there's an alternative except to appeal to the people, but then also find a way to compensate the people and reassure them that something like that won't happen again, because, you know, fearing for your life from bandits and insurgents is
Let's
one
go
thing.
back to accountability
back.
once again. Now, if you remember, the Army's communique was that there were 80 individuals. That's at a time when it was 120, and it's risen since then. Accountability starts from accepting exactly how many people, how many lives have been perhaps maybe lost and even ruined going forward. This was a family engagement where you have whole families.
Sure, sure.
You
So in terms of numbers, whenever people put out numbers, it depends on the source of those numbers. There are, of course, journalists on ground getting their information. Then, of course, there are the military getting their own information. The sources of the information has to be clear, and who we listen to actually has to be clear, and who actually makes that declaration is important. So I'm not going to call anyone out on the numbers now.
To add to that, as much as everything you said is correct, but then again, there's also a place for the law to actually take its own course. If somebody made a mistake, let's know who it was. Let's know what the measures, the punitive measures against this person is, and let's try and say, you know, avert any of this kind of thing. It's a drone, first of all. I didn't even know we had drones as when this.
There's a lot of things we do have that
military equipment that not every nation has.
Look, this is Nigeria. We really underestimate the kind of country we live in and the actual power we have. And I actually think it's also a strategy. Being underestimated is a strategy on the part of the federal government in some cases, in my opinion.
That's your opinion. And let's just leave it there, because we have to visit.
Wow.
So sorry, I wish I could let you speak, but
okay, go ahead.
I'm being instructed that we must move on to the next paper to contain it inside of the time frame we have. Daily Trust newspaper, real quick. Why Naira scarcity persists despite Supreme Court judgments. Queues for cash resurfaces. POS operators hike charges. This is the Daily Trust, by the way.
I actually experienced that.
I'm coming to tell you about my experience. Banks ration withdrawals, complaints of cash limits. No need to panic, says the CBN officials. Before I go deep into the paper, my experience over the weekend was visiting my sister for a family engagement, and I was actually looking for cash to get drinks.
Wow.
Because it's far off, and not everybody wanted a transfer, but we were actually hunting for cash, and I'm like, oh, it's that real? Because coming from the suburbs, you're like, every POS,
sure.
But it's nowhere.
So the whole, in effort to make everything as cashless as possible, you know, a lot more POS operators are around now. Most ATMs are functioning, but they are giving a limit as to how much cash you can withdraw. So whatever the reason is, we're obviously watching that story to see. It's a developing story as of right now, but people are asking questions. But then again, it is the period where everybody's trying to get things home for Christmas. They're trying to, you know, get money to travel. So there is a higher demand for cash right now than probably about a month or two ago.
Yeah. Before shifting to our next segment here on Wake Up Nigeria, real quick touch on this headline from the Daily Trust. After Daily Trust reports, FG goes after kidney traders. Never would have thought that there was such a ecosystem in Nigeria, but they are. Last week, a doctor was actually arrested for killing and trading somebody's organs in the East, if I'm not mistaken.
So a lot of the cases that people assume are in quote ritual killings are actually organ harvesting, you know, operations and things like that. And it is sad that it's you know, it's getting to an alarming rate, but as it says here, federal government is going after them, and we'll be looking to more reports in this regard.
Well, that's all we have for the papers. Thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you guys here with us.